In Christian tradition, the 5 holy wounds are 5 sacred wounds of the 5 piercing wounds Jesus suffered during the crucifixion. The wounds have been the focus of particular devotions, especially in the late Middle Ages, and have often been reflected in church music and art history. The revival of religious life and the zealous activity of Bernard of Clairvaux and Francis of Assisi in the 12th and 13th centuries, together with the enthusiasm of the Crusaders returning from the Holy Land, gave a rise to devotion to the Passion of Jesus Christ. Many medieval prayers in honor of the sacred wounds, including some attributed to Clare of Assisi, have been preserved. St. Mechtilda and St. Gertrude of Helfta were devoted to the holy wounds, the latter saint reciting daily a prayer in honor of the 5,466 wounds, which, according to a medieval tradition, were inflicted on Jesus during his Passion. In the 14th century it was customary in southern Germany to recite 15 paternosters each day in memory of the sacred wounds. While in the course of his Passion, Jesus suffered various wounds, such as those from the crown of thorns and from the scourging at the pillar. Medieval popular piety focused upon the 5 wounds associated directly with Christ's crucifixion, i.e., the nail wounds on his hands and feet, as well as the lance wound which pierced his side. There was in the medieval missals a special Mass in honor of Christ's wounds, known as the Golden Mass. During its celebration 5 candles were always lighted, and it was popularly held that if anyone should hear it on 5 consecutive days, he should never suffer the pains of hellfire. The Dominican Rosary also helped to promote devotion to the sacred wounds, for while the 50 small beads refer to Mary, the 5 large beads and the corresponding paternosters are intended to honor the 5 wounds of Christ. Again, in some places it was customary to ring a bell at noon on Fridays, to remind the faithful to recite 5 paters and aves in honor of the holy wounds. The 5 wounds comprised 1 through each hand, a wrist, 1 through each foot, and 1 to the chest. 2 of the wounds were through either his hands or his wrists, where nails were inserted to fix Jesus to the crossbeam of the cross on which he was crucified. According to American expert in forensic medicine, Frederick T. Zugibe, the most plausible region for the nail entry site in the case of Jesus is the upper part of the palm angled toward the wrist, since this area can easily support the weight of the body. Assures no bones are broken, marks the location where most people believed it to be, accounts for where most of the stigmatists have displayed the wounds, and it is where artists through the centuries have designated it. This position would result in apparent lengthening of the fingers of the hand because of nail compression. 2 were through the feet, where the nail passed through both to the vertical beam. The final wound was in the side of Jesus's chest, where, according to the New Testament, his body was pierced by the Holy Lance in order to be sure that he was dead. The Gospel of John states that blood and water poured out of this wound. Although the Gospels do not specify on which side he was wounded, it was conventionally shown in art as being on Jesus's proper right side, though some depictions, notably a number by Rubens, show it on the proper left. The examination of the wounds by Doubting Thomas the Apostle, reported only in the Gospel of John and John chapter 20 verses 24 to 29, was the focus of much commentary and often depicted in art, where the subject has the formal name of the incredulity of Thomas. Holy Wound Devotions. In his 1761 book, The Passion and Death of Jesus Christ, Saint Alphonsus Maria de Liguori, founder of the Redemptorist Fathers, listed among various pious exercises the little chaplet of the 5 wounds of Jesus crucified. The Passionist chaplet of the 5 wounds was developed in Rome in 1821. A corona of the 5 wounds was approved by the Holy See on the 11th of August 1823, and again in 1851. It consists of 5 divisions, each composed of 5 glories in honor of Christ's wounds and 1 avenue in commemoration of the sorrowful Mother. The blessing of the beads is reserved to the Passionists. The Rosary of the Holy Wounds was first introduced at the beginning of the 20th century by the Venerable Sister Marie Martha Chambon, a lay Roman Catholic sister of the monastery of the Visitation Order in Chambéry, France. Symbolic use. As early as 1139, Alfonso Henriques put the emblem of the 5 wounds on his coat of arms as King of Portugal. The Cross of Jerusalem, or Crusaders' Cross, remembers the 5 wounds through its 5 crosses. The Holy Wounds have been used as a symbol of Christianity. Participants in the Crusades would often wear the Jerusalem Cross, an emblem representing the Holy Wounds. A version is still in use today in the flag of Georgia. The 5 wounds was the emblem of the Pilgrimage of Grace, a northern English rebellion in response to Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries. When consecrating an altar, a number of Christian churches anointed in 5 places, indicative of the 5 holy wounds. Eastern Orthodox churches will sometimes have 5 domes on them, symbolizing the 5 holy wounds, along with the alternate symbolism of Christ and the 4 evangelists. In sacred music, the medieval poem Salve Mundi Salute was formerly ascribed to Saint Bonaventure Bernard of Clairvaux, but now is thought more likely to have been written by the Cistercian abbot Arnulf of Leuven. A lengthy meditation upon the Passion of Christ. It is composed of 7 parts, each pertaining to one of the members of Christ's crucified body. Popular in the 17th century, it was arranged as a cycle of 7 cantatas in 1680 by Dieterich Buxtehude. His 1680 Membra Jesu Nostri is divided into 7 parts, each addressed to a different member of Christ's crucified body. Feet, knees, hands, side, breast, heart, and head, framed by selected Old Testament verses containing prefigurements. The cantata has come down to us more widely known as the hymn O Sacred Head Surrounded, named for the closing stanza of poem addressed to Christ's head, which begins, Salve caput cruentatem, translated by Lutheran hymnist Paul Gerhardt. Johann Sebastian Bach arranged the melody and used 5 stanzas of the hymn in his St. Matthew Passion. Franz Liszt included an arrangement of this hymn at the 6th station. St. Veronica wipes the Holy Face in his Via Crucis. In art, the subject of doubting Thomas, or the incredulity of St. Thomas, has been common since at least the early 6th century, when it appears in the mosaics at Basilica of Sant'Apollinare Nuovo in Ravenna, and on the Monza Ampelai. Among the most famous examples of the sculpted pair of Christ and St. Thomas by Andrea del Verrocchio for the Orson Michel in Florence, and the incredulity of St. Thomas by Caravaggio, now in Potsdam. In the later Middle Ages, Jesus with one side of his robe pulled back, displaying the wound in his side, and his other 4 wounds, was taken from images with the doubting Thomas and turned into a pose adopted by Jesus alone, who often places his own fingers into the wound in his side. This form became a common feature of single iconic figures of Jesus and subjects such as the Last Judgment, Christ in Majesty, the Man of Sorrows, and Christ with the Armor Christi, and was used to emphasize Christ's suffering as well as the fact of his resurrection.